This is Food Chemistry, Unit 1, Chapter 21, Dehydration and Concentration, Controlling Water Activity. Water activity indicates how perishable a food is. Corn on the cob, for example, spoils within days of being picked unless it is canned or frozen. Yet popcorn can be kept on the shelf for years. The difference is the water content. Dehydration preserves food by lowering the water content. It is the artificial drying of a food product under controlled conditions. The main function is to protect food from spoilage. The less water, the less that mold and bacteria can grow. Foods are also lighter in weight and take up less space for activities like hiking or use on the International Space Station or military. If foods are lighter, the cost to package, ship, and store compared to canned foods is cheaper. It's most likely the oldest method of food preservation. Seeds kept in sealed jars by Mayans and Aztecs grew when researchers planted them. That's kind of cool. Common dehydrated foods are instant soups, non-fat dry milk, soy milk powder, instant teas and coffees. These would need to be rehydrated, right? So you can purchase them dehydrated, and then you have to rehydrate them. Things like dried fruits like prunes or raisins, or spices like oregano, you can eat them as is. Even though they are dehydrated, they are edible as they are. So here's some of the dehydrated products where you'd have to rehydrate them. And then these, you know that, right? Prunes come from plums, raisins come from grapes, and just, dried cherries come from cherries, right? So you can actually eat these as is. So what are some factors that affect the quality of dried foods? Well, there's surface area. So increasing the exposed area of food speeds the travel of the heat to the center of the food. The faster the heat enters, the faster the water leaves. So food is often evenly cut into thin slices or small pieces before they enter the dehydrator. The thicker the food, the more chance of incomplete dehydration. You can also get unpleasant flavors and textures, and there's also more of a risk of microbe growth. So when you dehydrate something, you want to cut it into smaller pieces as opposed to like a big steak like this. Airflow. Heat and moving air speeds dehydration. Food should be arranged so air can circulate easily. So this is what it looks like to put foods in a dehydrator. Drying. Food temperatures and pressures are lowered to the point that water sublimates out of the food. So I don't know if you remember what sublimation is, but this is where it's a change from a solid to a gas with no liquid phase. So basically food goes from a solid to a gas and bypasses that liquid phase. So when food is frozen, then placed in a vacuum chamber, water as ice, which is the solid, it's changed to water vapor, which is the gas, without thawing the food. Thicker pieces of meat can be dehydrated in this way. There's less damage to the surface of the food. Foods retain their color and flavor better, but it's expensive. Anything that uses a vacuum chamber, that's going to be expensive. Curing, smoking and salting foods. So ancient cultures used the sun to dry foods, but this did not provide enough time to dry the food before the food actually spoiled. So one method that was used was smoking. So you lay wood chips on hot coals and the smoke surrounds the food. This reduced the moisture content of the food. This is still done today, particularly like for barbecuing, but you need to be careful of the type of wood that's used. It's usually hickory or mesquite. Undesirable compounds may be released into the food if you use wood that's not meant to be smoked. Okay, so it's still around today. Okay, rehydration. This is returning the water back to the food. So on the shelves you have concentrated food. So this is where part of the water was removed from a food product. It's reduced in volume, things like fruit juice, condensed milk, maple syrups, condensed soups, right? You've seen these products on the shelves. Concentrated juices and soups, you would need to add water. So something like this tomato soup or this cranberry juice that's frozen like this, you need to add water to them in order to use it. If you eat it like this, it's way too concentrated and probably does not taste that good. Condensed milk, right here, that can be used as is in recipes. You don't normally just drink this out of the can, but you can put it over ice, like a snow cone type of deal, and that does taste good, but you can eat this as is. And maple syrup, which is quite concentrated sugar, can be eaten as is. Benefits of concentrates. They're economical to ship. Removing the water reduces the volume and weight. Some of the water removed improves shelf life. Homemade jams and jellies do not spoil easily. Part of the water is removed and there's a high sugar content, which also reduces the water level. Problems with concentrates. They'll have a cooked flavor and color changes. Evaporated milk, like you saw, it's got a light tan color and a caramel flavor, which is different from milk itself. There could be gritty textures, the formation of sugar crystals. Too much water removed from sugary foods creates the formation of those crystals. Intermediate moisture foods. You have dehydrated foods where the moisture level is below 15%, like your herbs and spices. You have your concentrated foods where the moisture level is as high as 80%, like in condensed soups. And then you have intermediate moisture foods. So this is between 20 to 50% concentrated, but there's enough dissolved solutes to prevent microbe growth. So some examples are honey, jams, jellies, fruitcakes, things like pepperoni, beef jerky, partially dried figs and dates, fruit strips, things like that. So not fully dehydrated, but not fully concentrated either, so somewhere in between.